Imagine me and you, I do. I think about you day and night. It's only right to think about the girl you love and hold her tight.
Welcome to Crazy Carrot Studios. My name is James, and today we will be going over how to add audio to our health and damage triggers, along with a death text for when you die. Back in our project here, you'll notice that we have everything working properly, and when we run through our death trigger, we do lose health, and we run through the heal, it will do the same. Along with our sprint, you can see that we have it lowering the sprint level, and when we get to the end of it, it slows you down and makes you start over. So we want to make it a little more interesting so that when you run through the triggers, that it's actually going to make a sound when you're getting hurt, or a sound for when you pick up a health box or something like that. So let's go and see how we can do that. So I pulled up a couple of tabs here, and if we come into our Google here and just Google play or hurt sound effects, you'll see here we got a few different options you can go to, but in this particular one, I'm going to Pixabay. If you come in here, you'll notice that it is a royalty-free with no attributions required. It's an MP3 download. We're going to come in here, and I'm going to use this male hurt sound. And I'm just going to download that straight into my project here. So when I open up my folder here, I'm going to drag the MP3 straight into my project. Now in this particular case, I want to create an audio folder here. So we're going to go ahead and do so. That way we can keep it all separate. And I think I dragged it straight into my scripts one. So we're going to take that and move it into the audio folder, which why I called it folder, I do not know. Let's call it audio. And then we're going to do something similar to that by bringing in a healing sound effect. In this particular case, I brought this one in here. Just to give it a sound that's going to make it sound like you're picking up a health pack or a health kit or something like that. Now, of course, you can use any sound effects that you would like to use, whatever you think would sound best with whatever game you're trying to make. But let's go ahead and start working on a code that'll fire this off. So let's go back into our scripts folder, and inside of our damage, we're going to come up here and we're going to add a couple of variables here. One is going to be we're going to make this a public, we can do serial live field, but we're going to just go ahead and make this public for you now. Public audio clip. And this is going to hold the clip that we're trying to reference. And I'm going to call this one a damage clip. And then we're going to also add in a public audio source. And I'm just going to call this audio source. Now the other thing I'm going to do is on top, like we've done in a previous one, we're going to do a required components attribute here. Oh, wrong one. So we're going to do a required component, a type of, and we're going to make sure it's a type of audio source. And that way it'll make sure that we have an audio source on this component that's holding the script. Now the other thing we're going to need to do is make sure we reference that audio source. So we need to create a start function here. And inside the start function, we're going to get that audio source. So what we're going to do here is say audio source equals get component audio source. Just like that. So once we have that in there, now we can actually write the script that's going to, or write the function that's actually going to pull that audio and play the clip on it. So we're going to do a little bit of a check here. So under here, under this last damage, we want to make sure that it's inside, it's going to be firing off inside this part where the damage is actually taking effect. We want to say if our damage clip is not null, which means we do have a damage clip. So as long as we have a damage clip and we have an audio source, we want to say and our audio source is not null, then we wanted to play this audio clip. So we're going to just type in here play audio clip. My fingers are too fat. Clip, And we're just going to say audio source. I think we did there we go. Dot play one shot. And what that's going to do is, if you read here, it plays an audio clip and scales the audio volume by the volume scale. So it's only going to play it one time, and that's why it's called a play one shot. So we're going to hit play one shot, and we want it to play the damage clip. Now, we're going to take the same one here, and we're going to copy this, because we're going to also put this into our heal script in the same spot. And we're going to change, first we need to put these variables in here as well. So we're going to come back up here and get the same variables. And we're going to change this to heal clip. And then we're just going to change this here to heal clip. Same with this one. Now the other thing is too, we've also got here leftover, I guess we copied it as well. We called it last damage time. We'll just call this last heal time. And I'll just change it down here as well. That way it's more designed for what you're trying to use it for, and you can understand it when you're reading through it. Okay, so that right there should take care of the job. Now one last thing we want to make sure is we do the required type. And we need to make sure we're doing the start and get components. So let's go ahead and do that to our heal script as well. And then for the start, I'm just going to keep copying just because why redo something I've already created, although it is good practice. So right now we've got everything should be working. We just got to assign the value of the audio clips that you want to use. So let's go back into our project here and let our script reload. Now when we come over here to our heal, and we bring this over here, we need to make sure that we have the heal clip assigned to it. So let's go back to my audio here, and I'm going to bring the heal sound straight into it. And for the damage, I'm going to bring the male hurt sound. Oh, did I not save the damage one? Let's take a look. Nope, did not save the damage. That's why it's not showing in there. Now, because we have the required component coming in, it's going to add that component for the audio source as well as the, it's going to find that audio source for us. So we don't need to actually drag that in there. So let's just take a look and see if that's going to work for us. And you noticed here, it added the audio source right away. Now, let's see if this actually works. So we're going to come over here and go to our damage. And every time it fires off, it's making that call. Now let's go in here. And you can hear every time it fires off for the healing, it's playing our sound. Excellent. That's exactly what we wanted to do. Now the last thing I want to try to add into is in our canvas, I want to create a death text. So let's come into our canvas here, and we've got our sliders and our pause menu and everything else. But we're going to create another panel. We're going to call it a UI panel, and we'll just call this one DeathText. Actually, let me just call it a panel too, just so I know that's not the actual text, but it is just a panel holding the text. I'm going to go back to 2D view so I can see this clearly. And in this DeathText, I don't want it to show over the whole screen. I really just want to show it in the upper section. So we're going to go ahead and Alt and Shift and bring it all the way up to the front. I'm going to drag this up to about where I want it. And I'm going to make sure this background has a darkened look. And let's kind of fade it out so it's a little darker than everything else. I'm going to turn my pause menu off so I can see what it's going to look like behind the game. So you'll see it'll look something like this. And then what we're going to do here is we're going to create a UI Text Mesh Pro underneath it. I want it to be resized so that we can properly see what we're looking at. So I'm just going to size it up to the whole entire here. And we're going to hit bold and auto size. Now on the auto size, I'm going to make the max allowed to be about 150. We might even go bigger than that. Let me try 300, see what that looks like. That looks proper. Okay. I'm going to make it a red text because we definitely want it to show that we are dead. and I'm going to center it to the middle of our screen. So now it's going to show up something like this. And what we want it to say is, you are dead. Or something like that. Whatever you want to put in there. So when we die, we want this to be able to be popped up and say you are dead. So first thing we need to do is we need to create a reference to this panel so that it can be turned on and off like so. And so it'll start off in the off position, and then when we are playing the game and we get to the bottom and we actually die, it'll trigger this to come on and say you are dead. So let's go ahead and see how we can go about doing that. Okay, so if we look at our health script, you will notice that we actually have a few variables already here set up for the die. So if we take damage and we get below or equal to 0, we run into the die function, which is down here. And you notice we already have a spot for display Death UI text. So let's go ahead and try to set that up. We want to go ahead and set up a public variable. And we're going to call this one here game object. And I'm going to call this one death text panel. And so down here, what I want to do is whenever we die, I want to make that death panel active. So let's go ahead and do the death text panel. And of course, I definitely misspelled it. There we go. Death text panel, and then we're going to say dot set active, and we're going to call this one true, not false. Now in start, we're going to want to make sure that this starts as false. So I'm just going to copy this here and come up here to the start function. Give us a little space here. Paste this in right there, but in this particular case, I want the game to start with it false. So even if we have it set to true, it'll automatically set it to false at the beginning of the game. So let's see how this is going to work. We do need to set the variable for the panel, set the game object there. So let's go ahead and go to our script here, which is going to be on our character. And we should show inside of our health script here, an empty spot for the death text panel. We're going to just drag that panel straight in. And when we hit play, that should automatically turn off. And it did. Excellent. And of course, we can hit escape. Our pause menu comes up. We go back to resume. Everything seems to work. So let's go ahead and see if we go all the way down, if that'll pop up. We are dead. But you notice it's still doing the on dead because we actually hadn't turned anything off. A lot like the pause menu, you can freeze the game or you can destroy your game character. So that's what we're going to do in this particular case, just to make sure all that kind of stops. We're not going to deal with that every time. We're going to go inside the death. We're going to say destroy, and we're just going to say this. So let's see how this is going to work. And if everything goes well, when we actually die, it'll destroy our character and that should stop playing. But the "you are dead" text will already popped up because it is in the order behind it. Excellent. So it destroyed that sound, so you're no longer getting it, and that works exactly what we wanted. Now, we could also set it up where the character stops moving, the whole screen freezes. There's all sorts of things you can do to make it a more interactive look, but this accomplishes what we were trying to do. All right, I'm going to do a little bit of cleanup here, and I wanted to show you a few examples of things that you could do to make your scripts a little bit easier to read inside the inspector, as well as how to turn the mouse cursor off when you're in play mode, but not in the pause menu and so forth. So let's go ahead and take a quick look at some of that. Inside of our health script that we originally had, I do want to show one thing here. when I said to destroy this, what that is actually doing is that's going to destroy this particular script, which is the health script. If you were to say destroy game object, it'll actually destroy your player game object. So that is what we want to do in this particular case. That'll make your character completely disappear and none of the scripts on the player will be used. So I'm going to go ahead and save that there. And that's called destroy game object. Again, when you say destroy this, it's destroying the script that this is on. So if you were to say destroy this on the damage, it would destroy that script, although everything else would be working perfectly. So hopefully that explains a little bit there. The next thing, let's go into our player controller inside of Awake. And I want to make sure that our mouse is being turned off when we start the game. So I am going to do what's called cursor lock state and cursor visible. I'm going to just paste that in here real quick just so you can see what that's going to look like. And what this is it's going to lock the cursor and make sure that you're not able to see it. So for example, if we do that, and let's go here into the pause menu, and inside the let's go ahead and see pause game, we want to set that to true, but we also want to make sure that we allow that to be visible once again. So let's go ahead and change our visibility when we're going to true. And when we're doing false, we want it to go back to not showing the cursor. So let's go ahead and do that. And let's save this. Now, let's go and make sure everything is there. Let's go ahead and take a look at that real quick. Now, when we start our game, we should automatically hide that cursor when we come in, and it does. Exactly what we want. Now, when we also come in here and get hit, you'll notice when we die, it's not just the health script that's being disabled. The entire player gets taken away. Just like so. And that's exactly what we wanted in this particular case. Now, you notice here also, when I hit the escape key to go to our pause menu, we now have our mouse again. If I go to resume game, it disappears. So this enables us to make this work. Now, if you don't want to see that you are dead when you're going to the pause menu, you can also do that by coming into the script for the pause menu. And when we pause it, we can set that other one to set active to be false. We'd have to reference it into the script or something like that. But for right now, this works fine, and it's going to do what we want. I do wanted to show you a few other little things. For example, when you're organizing a script, there is something called a header. And what we can do here is do something here on the damage script, and let's call this one header. And we're going to call this damage variables. If I can type again. And then here, I'm going to do another one. We're going to call this header. And I'm going to call this one audio variables. Or audio settings, or whatever you want to call it. Now, when I save this, I'm going to show you why this is handy, especially when you start getting into longer code and you have a lot of different things in here. The other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make this private because we no longer need to see the audio source because we are getting it here. And we've already tested to know that it's going to be there. And so we're going to save that. And I'm going to go to that damage game object we have here. And if you notice, when we come to our damage script, we now have a header that actually lists the variables and it separates it from the audio variables. So when you're dealing with a lot of different things in one script, this will allow you to separate and head each one so you know what you're trying to work on in each particular case. It becomes very handy on extremely long or multiple variable scripts that you're going to need a lot of it on. So I hope that helps you and gives you some ideas of how to change up things you're working on. And I'm going to leave it for here. Next time when we come back, maybe we'll look into creating an enemy and have it interact with our player with an attack motion. But for now, we're going to leave off here. And from all of us at Crazy Carrot Studios, we would like to say thank you. And don't forget to please like and subscribe. We will see you next time when we get back to Learning with Bob.